Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. More than power, never, ever, after work is over. Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over. Never over. Work it, make it better, do it faster, makes it stronger. That ever power is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes it stronger. That ever power work is never over. Work it harder, faster, makes it stronger. That ever power work it never over. Work it harder, do it faster. Our work is never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour, work is never over.
What is up, gang? What is up? What is up? This is your boy Darren, man, stopping in the building, saying what's happening, man. Actually, going to watch a video that I actually was on. I did at the Indianapolis Bar Association, where I talked to some SEO for lawyers, man. So I've been meaning to play it. So peep it out. If you want to stay for a minute, that's cool. If not, that's cool too, man. You know what I'm saying? It's entirely up to you. All right, man. Here we go. Let's get started. Boo do 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 do. Hello, Daft Punk, man. Hear my family laughing. All right. So anything outside. Start from the beginning.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're doing our weekly webinar for the Indy Bar's Practice Builder program, which happens every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I got a real treat for you today. You're not going to have to listen to me the whole time. Don't all clap at once. As usual, my name is Jared Correa, and I am a business management consultant for law firms. I have a company called Red Cave Law Firm Consulting, where I work with law firms to help them out with business management on a number of fronts: technology, marketing, financial management. Good news for you there is that Red Cave is a member benefit of the Indy Bar. So if you're an Indy Bar member, you can get a free consultation with me. Just go to the Practice Builder page to find out more information, or if you want, visit my own webpage, which is redcavelegal.com/Indy-bar. Don't forget the dash. I always do, but I got a special landing page for Indy Bar members. Now, as I said, we got a real treat today. You're not going to have to listen to me the whole time. We are talking today to Darren Marion, who runs Rattel SEO. Am I pronouncing it right, Rattel? Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So Darren and I are just going to have a little conversation. And just in terms of housekeeping, everybody on the call who are not me and Darren are going to be muted. And we're doing that to reduce background noise. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or the Q&A. Be happy to answer. This can be as interactive as possible. Darren is the expert on SEO, so he's going to help you out. So as I said, we're just going to have a conversation here today. Feel free to populate any questions in the chat that you want. So Darren, great talking with you today. We had a little pre-interview. I'm very excited to have this conversation. You've got like a super interesting background. You haven't always done SEO. You used to sell coffee.
Right.
In fact, do you want to tell people a little bit about like what you did before, how you started doing the SEO thing? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I was a coffee roaster, Darren's Coffee Company. I wanted to find a way to make people happy. And usually when people they drink coffee, that makes them happy. Well, when I first started off, I wanted to because I was a one-man operation. Really, I started out with a popcorn popper and a whisk and all that stuff. When I wanted to make myself look large. So I started to take digital marketing courses back then, just whatever I could find, social media management, SEO, all that stuff, blogging. And so I started to just do all that stuff. And before I knew it, I was getting interviews everywhere, and I was, I blew my little coffee business up where I had a few shops. But I kind of was getting tired of coffee, and I really enjoyed the pubbing my business up part. So I started to ask other people, could I help them out for free? And eventually, when someone said, I hear some money for it, then I figured I had a business. So let me start Rattel. So
nice. Do you have a favorite coffee? Just out of curiosity. I'm just interested to know.
Yeah, Peruvian.
All right, Peruvian coffee. All right, look at this, man. Like we got SEO tips, we got coffee tips. You got it all. So let's talk a little bit about SEO for it. So I've worked with attorneys for a long time. You've worked with attorneys for a long time. I think there are some definitional issues here. So I don't think a ton of attorneys like really know what SEO means. And then I've heard people referring to it more along the lines of SEM these days, so search engine marketing. So do you want to fill in a little bit of the background in terms of like, if you want to hire somebody to do SEO work for you, what are they actually going to be doing?
Okay. So search engine, SEO stands for search engine optimization. So what we do in SEO is we optimize your website to give the optimal results for whatever query the search engine is requiring. So anything outside of that is not SEO. So that'd be more digital marketing, search engine marketing.
Gotcha. And you're focused exclusively on SEO. Yes. So how you rank on search engines.
Exactly. Traffic, all that stuff.
Right. And now most people are focused on Google, but are you looking at other search engines when you work with attorneys in law firms?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Actually, all of them.
So
I want traffic from everywhere.
Right. You want traffic from everywhere. So we got Google, we've got Bing, which I think most people know about. Other options out there?
Yeah, Yahoo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yahoo, Yandex, Facebook.
So yeah, any place where leads could be coming in, segregated by search. Okay, so let's delve into some meaty conversation. So before we started recording, right, you were telling me about a current debate in the SEO community, meta tags. Okay. Yeah. Meta tags good, meta tags bad. So first of all, I think let's talk about what meta tags are in the first place, and then where do you sit on this debate?
Okay. Well, it's kind of funny because I switched
You switched
yeah,
sides recently?
yeah, I switched sides recently, test results.
That's
So,
okay.
so I practice technical SEO, meaning that we test everything.
Right.
And we test everything through single variable testing. And we test it 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 times. And if we think something's changed, then we test it again.
Hmm.
So meta tags are when you type in a query on Google and you see on that search page or wherever, on Bing or wherever, you see the search page, that information you see right beneath the title of your query. So as an example, if your query was criminal defense lawyer, someone would have a criminal defense lawyer page. That information that would say, blah, 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 criminal defense lawyer here, call this
Right.
number.
Yep.
That's the meta tag. So Google, now you can fill that information in.
Yeah.
All
Right.
But
Right.
Google
That's information that you would produce as the website owner.
Exactly. You would produce a website on it. Or Google can grab that and grab whatever information from the page, and it can serve up whatever information that Google thinks is important.
Hmm.
So where I stand on the debate is I like to dot every I and cross every T. So that's what SEO really is about. It is you don't leave anything unturned. So
Gotcha. So you want to control the meta tags if you're working with a firm. So part of what you would do is counsel firms on, what to write in terms of meta tags, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And that's
exactly.
part of the service.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. We would create all that information.
Gotcha. And then that's on the website and potentially on other landing pages or other platforms too, where you have control over those meta tags.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So there we go. Meta tags, control them. But more to the point, I think one of the things we want to talk about today is the way to operate SEO is focus on local search, right? And I think this is particularly important for attorneys. Now, I'll tell you one of the things I find interesting for attorneys is that oh, that's fine.
Sorry, man. Sorry about that. I thought I turned it off, man.
No, that's it happens.
That,
It happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
I'll be surprised if my phone doesn't ring during this conversation.
That's crazy, man.
That just means business. You're doing a good job. That's probably a new client. So in terms of local SEO, right? Like I think this is especially important for attorneys who have jurisdictional limitations. Most law firms are regional or city based. And so when I talk to lawyers who don't have an idea of like an ideal client or where they're focused on, they say, I want to get clients from anywhere. That's not really an effective business marketing strategy. And the same is true for SEO. So can you talk a little bit about local SEO, what that means, how you would leverage it for a law firm?
Okay. Yeah. Local SEO is everything that happens in your local space, just like it sounds. It's the maps. It's the Yelp listing. It's the where the user has the greatest amount of contact with the provider. So that's usually one step. With national SEO or affiliate SEO, there's usually like a middleman that's somewhere in between. So we want to provide, I'm providing an attorney, connecting attorney with the person that needs the legal services.
Right. And so you're talking about maps, you're talking about other components on the Google, because I think like one thing that's interesting is the Google search page, only a portion of that is organic results. And so when we're talking about SEO, we're talking about paid results specifically. Do they still call it the snack pack, like the top portion of the page?
Yeah, some people call it that. Yeah, it's
And could you talk about what that is a little bit? Because that might be a term of art that people don't understand.
Sure. So it's the maps. It's the maps listing. It's the top three. First at the top, you look at the Google page, and you'll see then ads up front. That's where they charge you guys $200 a click, for that. And then there's the map, and that's the listing of your address, your name, and phone number, just so if someone needs to call you, they can click the call. Mm-hmm. And then you have the organic listing, and that's the actual page that's created.
Right. And I think in terms of maps, like most attorneys probably don't do a whole lot with that, right? They're just thinking, you fill out the information about where you're at, it shows up on the map. Are there ways you can leverage the map portion of Google through SEO?
Yes, definitely.
And what are some ways you might be able to do that?
One of the ways would be citations. Mm-hmm. Places that list you as being someone that's relevant to an attorney, or someone that's relevant to that particular space. So a local directory.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that because I think this is an important component too. And I'll remind folks, I see people are still coming into the meeting. That's great. Anybody's got any questions, filter them through the chat. I'll see them. So in terms of directory profiles, like I agree, very important. And one of the things that attorneys don't do is like aggressively utilize directory profiles. But the first one I want to talk about, which I guess could loosely be described as a directory profile, is like the Google My Business profile. Do you find that people fill those out with enough information? Do you find that they are leveraging those to the full extent that they could be or not? And then how would you utilize a Google My Business profile to
Mhm.
work for an SEO campaign?
Okay. Wow, that's a good
That
question.
was a lot of stuff, I know.
Yeah, it's a
But
good question. Because then it's like, well, it's like, so do I tell you guys the secret sauce or no? I was like,
don't tell them the secret
you
sauce.
could
Just give them a
tell you the
taste.
secret sauce. Yeah. Well, let's just say whatever most people do is woefully insufficient.
All
So,
right, that's fair.
so yeah, you want to make sure that you're giving as much information about your business as possible to get the
Right.
best results. So,
And I've talked with folks before about Google My Business and directory profiles generally. Like one of the things that I think is really important is like making sure you have the same name, address, and phone number across
yep.
all these profiles. And that's something that people screw up all the time, right? Like they'll have parentheses for the area code in one listing and then without in the next. They'll do
Mhm.
STE, they'll do suite, they'll do
Yep.
street, they'll spill it out. That should all be consistent across all your directory profiles, right? Because it's easier for the search engines to crawl that information.
Right. It's easy. The less work you want Google to do, the better. So you want
Right.
Google to be able to
That's a
make
good
that
way to look at it.
association and say, all right, this person with STE is the same person with SUITE over here. So we need to connect them to this Google My Business profile.
Right. And then one of the things I've seen is in terms of office hours, right? Because one thing that's going on right now is that businesses' office hours are kind of off the wall because the
Mhm.
pandemic is still going on. And then I've seen some people who have said, well, maybe you don't have office hours at all. Let people
Mhm.
just call you whenever. And if you have a virtual receptionist available, like you don't want somebody to think you're not open at 8 p.m. if you
Right.
want that lead. So, what are your thoughts on that? Both with respect to like how you position yourself during the pandemic and in terms of whether and how you include office hours on directory
Right.
profiles.
Yes. So that's I know it's something that we actually do for our clients is we make sure that somebody's going to be manning the phone 24 hours a day.
Right.
So if
Right.
that phone rings, we want someone to be able to answer it. If there's a message that comes through that Google My Business profile, we want someone to be there to respond to that.
Right.
So
Right.
and you got to think you want to be there for your prospective client. So if somebody's at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're having a conversation, they're thinking like, man, I should buy this house. What are some of the legal ramifications of buying here? Is there an easement, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
totally. I think that's really smart. So do you actually hook them up with preferred providers in terms of virtual reception, or do you let them choose, or how's that work?
no, we have someone on staff that does it. So
Oh, you do? Okay, so that's
uh-huh,
in-house for you.
that's in house. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So in terms of that, I think that brings to bear an important thing here is that like I know a lot of SEO companies focus on call tracking
Mhm.
to make sure that the campaigns are running effectively. So you set up different phone numbers for different campaigns. And some of those companies are using services like CallRail, for example, to track calls.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you do the same thing. Would you like to talk a little bit about how, because I think people think SEO is online, it's
Mhm.
search results, but there's also this whole call component and you want to pull data from there too. So
Right.
could you talk a little bit about how that's important and how you manage that?
Sure. Sure. So what we do, a lot of times what we do is we'll have a number, a number that's called where it rings and we can see where the call came from. So if we're doing an AdWords campaign or if we create a certain page for a certain campaign or even a certain site, we know that call is coming direct there.
Yep.
So that's really, it's just something we want to track. We want to be able to track where our efforts are coming, what's bringing us the most amount of traffic, and then we're
Right.
going to go there.
Right.
That
And
answers the question.
yeah, and I think the phone component of it is something that a lot of law firms don't necessarily understand. So let's talk a little bit about we talked about Google My Profile, Google My Business, but you want to have other directory profiles set up, right? The idea
Right.
is to have many of those because part of the reason you do that is you want to link to these verified companies so that Google knows this is a lawyer, this is a lawyer of some distinction.
Yep.
So when you talk to your clients, like, is there a is there a set number of directory profiles that you look at them having? Are there certain directory profiles that you focus on? Like, what's the thought process that goes behind setting that up for the law
Right.
firm?
Yeah, we look to have at least 100.
Yeah.
At least 100.
Okay.
And that's just, I mean, and that's
And those aren't
that's
all
directory.
legal specific, right? That
No,
could
those
be
aren't all
just
legal
generic
specific.
business listings
Those
too.
are generic, exactly. But you want to watch out to see if they're too spammy. If there's somebody that accepts everyone, then you might not. That's the neighborhood you might not want to be in.
Right.
So that's something that you want to vet first before you put your name there.
And do you find that those are different for different practice areas? Like if I was a personal injury attorney, would my 100 directory profiles look different than somebody who's like an estate planning attorney?
Not terribly, no.
Okay. So you've got a
Okay.
system in place of which you could manage that. So I guess
Yeah.
like same deal with all directory profiles, right?
Mhm.
Like you want to put as much relevant information there as you can to make your profile as viable as possible for people who land there, is my assumption.
Exactly. So you look at it as just as another source of traffic, because that directory gets traffic.
Right.
It might be one or two visitors, but it still gets traffic. And if that person comes along, or that prospective client comes along, and they see your information, you want to give them as much information as possible.
Right. Right.
So
Now,
yeah.
one of the reasons I know that attorneys tend to avoid setting up directory profiles is like they don't necessarily want the reviews.
Mhm.
Now, when you're an attorney and you get a negative review, I know I've talked to a lot of lawyers who are just like, if they get that 1-star review, that's
Mhm.
like blows up their whole world. Even if they have
Yeah.
like 500 5-star reviews, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that you have a 1-star review, so it looks legitimate.
Mhm.
How do you counsel lawyers on managing reviews? Let's say directory profile sites.
Mhm.
How can they build up that collection of reviews? And then what if they get a bad review? What do they do?
Okay. Well, one of the things you do, one of the things we do for reviews is we have an auto generate, a couple of auto generate links.
Right.
So right there, as soon as when the client, you just got them off a murder one, and it looks like they're about to be, they're free,
Right.
and you hand them phone and say, here, just click this link and give me your review.
And
That's
they're
a great
ready at
time.
that point. Yeah.
Right time. Give me a 5-star all day. So that's you want to try to catch the client as soon as they can, as they're ready to provide, as they can provide their review, what's most convenient for them.
Right. And
So,
I think a lot of attorneys look at this and they say, that's a lot of work, right? I'm going to have to go out and request these reviews. But there are softwares that manage that, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. There's several softwares, and a lot of times there's just with link shorteners. I mean, Google gives you a link that says click here for the review, and it takes the person right to the review.
Right.
So if you have, there's Constant Contact, there's MailChimp, there's a lot of just emailing softwares out there that you can send a blast an email to.
Right. And when you're thinking about like, because, I tell a lot of attorneys, like, just Google yourself, Google your firm. Because if you get personal referrals coming in, like, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And you got to think of how that page is arrayed, and think about how that page is arrayed using keywords too. Like the more reviews you have there, that's another
Exactly.
reason for people to turn over and use you. I think you're
Exactly.
spot on as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell your clients to talk about what you did for them.
Right. Right. So yeah, I think the review management part is something that can be handled via software, even though a lot of law firms don't do it that way. So it's great that you're focused on that. So we're talking now a little bit about like outside forces. So stuff that a directory profile is not under your control, outside the fact that you can add information to it. Like people are going to be able to post what they want there. How about the website? How does a website come into play? And what tactics do you see people utilizing that are effective in terms of designing a website that is SEO friendly?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't see in the legal space. I don't see a lot of people really doing what's necessary to give themselves the strongest amount of rankings, creating the practice pages, and then supporting those pages.
Right.
Not building a site like a case.
That's a good way to look at it. I think that's probably true. One thing I've noticed, and I'm interested in your feelings on this, is that a lot of attorneys on those practice area pages, they don't do a whole lot of work on narrative there. But if you get the right keywords in there, if you make that look appealing, like not only is that effective when a client lands on your website, but that could be potentially useful in terms of SEO. Would you
Yes.
agree? And do you see room for improvement there for
Yeah,
attorneys?
definitely. There needs to be room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. Yeah, the more information that you talk about what you do, give some specific examples,
Right.
link to specific cases. Um, that's the more specific that you are, the better. The better Google, less work that Google has to do or the search engine has to do to match you up with that searcher.
And we talked about reviews on directory profiles, but like it makes sense to have reviews on your website as well, also because that'll
Yeah,
flesh out what you do.
why not?
Right.
Additional content.
Yeah. I mean, what I found is that like legal consumers, they can tell that an attorney is like generically good. You got an award, you got a bio, you've got a website. They're okay. This person knows what they're doing. But legal consumers have very little idea of what the legal process looks like.
Right.
So I think if you fill in that information at the website, it can be really helpful for a
Mhm.
consumer trying to make a choice.
Yeah, like how do I beat this case?
Right. That's what they
You
want to
know?
know. And they don't want to know that you're like a super lawyer necessarily. I mean, it's good. It's probably better than an average lawyer.
Yeah,
They don't
like your mom
necessarily
probably
know.
thinks you're a super lawyer.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So let me ask you about like, because this doesn't exist in a vacuum. So you're not the one law firm in Indianapolis marketing. You've got competitors.
Right.
So how do you advise people in terms of finding out information about what their competitors are doing
Mhm.
in search and then reacting based on that? Or do you think they should even react based on that or just do what they do regardless? So first point, I would say like if I was a PI attorney and I'm like, what are the other top 5 PI firms doing in terms of search optimization?
Mhm.
Could I find that information out? How valuable would that be? What are your thoughts on that?
There's some things you could do that are valuable, but the thing is do you want to look like those? So you want your practice to look like their practice? Because if you think about it, those practices, if they're doing all the same thing, they all look just alike. They're all going after the same fish in the same pond, and the same going after the same stuff. So you really want to do what's specific to your practice, what makes you special,
Hmm. Mhm.
because then you're going to be matched up with the best type of client that you're looking for. You might not be looking for the person that's shopping at Walmart. Just like Walmart, you have what's that place? Nordstrom's, and you have Walmart, right? My wife was in there.
Right.
Nordstrom and
Right.
Walmart, they're not going after the same customer.
Right. Right.
So
So it helps to know what your target client is before you even
exactly,
have any of these discussions.
exactly.
And
What kind of questions do you want to answer?
right, allow you to differentiate yourself a little bit. So given that that's the case, like I'm sure it would be helpful to know what other attorneys in the area are doing in terms of search. And then it sounds like the main advice is to figure out a way that you're going to resonate with potential clients on your own. Um, if you find out information about how somebody else is managing their SEO, are there strategy moves you could make to counteract that? Like if you talked about that with law firms, how do you
Yes,
manage that?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Great question. So yeah, I'll look at what a lot of what the other competition is doing, and then I'll know what's trending.
Right.
So we can
That
look
makes
at
sense.
search volumes. We can look at what keywords a website is ranking for,
Mhm.
and we can see how well that practice is doing. And we can see how many. So let's say an example: if a practice is ranking for 1,000 keywords related to DUI, and we see that this is trending, then we can see that DUIs in areas are trending, and so there
Right.
might be something that we want to target after. We want to create a content strategy around getting a DUI client.
Right. So you could use that in a number of applications, not just in terms of SEO, but let's say a firm wanted to write more blog posts about DUI because that's a practice area they haven't exploited yet. They could use that business intelligence to do that.
Exactly.
And then,
Exactly.
so this leads into a conversation of like how you manage the data because a lot of attorneys make ad hoc decisions about their
Mhm,
practices. They're just going on gut feelings and guessing in what
mhm.
direction they want to go. My personal preference is it's far better to make data driven decisions. And one of the ways you pull data from SEO campaigns is using Google Analytics. So let me ask you about that. Can you talk a little bit about what Google Analytics is, how you use it, and also how you use it in conjunction with the law firms that you work with?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So Google Analytics is a free tool that Google has, and it allows you to track user experience on your overall site. How people get to your site. What words are they typing in to get to your site? Are they using social media to get to your site? Are they using other search engines to get to your site?
Right.
So
So in terms of diving into that, like I think most attorneys would hear that and say, that sounds like a lot of work.
Mhm.
So working with someone who is an SEO professional,
Mhm.
what would my expectation be as an attorney?
Okay.
I mean, of course, if you had an account, you just look at it, right, and try to
Right.
analyze it yourself. But like,
Mhm.
do you do monthly meetings with people? Do you generate reports? Like, how do you unpack that information for a law firm?
Okay. I generally, when someone first comes a client, we meet with them on a weekly basis.
Yep.
Usually every Monday, every Friday, and then we meet with them on a weekly basis, and we talk about what the numbers look like. Is this what we will think? Or are we targeting what we think that we're targeting for the clients? And then of course I speak with my clients on text message probably every few days,
Oh, right.
just saying,
Yeah.
hey, calls coming in, how you think? I'm showing this. Is there a certain kind of area, certain kind of client you're looking for? What do you want to focus on? And so that really is just me understanding, trying to have a good understanding of their practice. So I'm like their outsourced marketing department.
Right, right, and that's a good way to look at it. I think that's really helpful. So if I'm working with you and I'm an attorney, I'm expecting those insights on a recurring basis as well.
Mhm.
Oh, we got a question coming in. Okay, so William has a question. Thanks, William, for the question. So William asks, is there anything that individual lawyers can do to elevate their SEO that doesn't necessarily involve making changes to the firm website? In certain law firms, there can be significant internal obstacles to making changes to the website. And I think that's a great point, is that even if you're in a small firm and you've got a managing partner who's not interested in letting you do something a little outside the scope of what's normal on the
Mhm.
website, that
Mhm.
I've seen that as a challenge for lawyers. So yeah, how would you respond to that?
Okay, so they can't create content on the site, right?
Yeah. So if
Okay.
there's very little you could do to manage the site, change
Yeah.
content.
Okay. So then that's when you want to start branding around a particular piece of business. So you can have a site where you answer questions, a YouTube channel, something that YouTube for people to answer questions, because you want to get your brand out there and have your brand associated with those queries. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
I know a lot of times your hands may be tied with what you can do on the site. I'm not sure how, you know, if I'm not sure what to what extent things done offsite, what kind of freedom would you have there? So that'd be my next
Right.
question.
That's true. That's true. Because you could make changes to other online profiles off the
Right,
site. That makes
right.
sense. And I guess part of it would be working with the site as it exists, right? Like
Hmm.
you as an SEO person could take a look at that site and say, okay, I can't change the site. I'm going to assume that's written in stone. I can
Hmm.
take some of the information here and build SEO campaigns around what the site looks like now.
Right, right,
Gotcha.
right.
All right, everybody. So we're at the bottom of the hour. We don't like to go too long on these presentations, usually half an hour. So, Darren, I got a couple more questions from you, but I just
Okay.
want to tell people, like, if you're willing to stick around.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, man.
I just want to tell folks, like, if you've got questions, now's the time. Use them or lose them. Well, we'll go another 5 minutes here, probably just me and Darren. One question I have that I'd bring up for you, which I see a lot of attorneys talking about on a fairly regular basis, is site speed, right?
Hmm.
So I think there's a big focus now on accelerated mobile pages,
Hmm.
site speed, so that it doesn't take a long time for the site to load. Because if it does, you could potentially get dinged in terms of search rankings as well, right? So, like,
Right.
can you speak a little bit to the importance of site speed and how that affects SEO?
Yeah, site speed is it's another ranking factor.
Mhm.
And if I were to compare how well a site would answer a query versus a site speed, Google is gonna what we've shown is that Google usually gives the bump to the person who answers the query better.
Yep.
So it's just another ranking factor. Now let's say both of these sites answered the same query, but one was a little bit faster. The one who's going to get the bump is the one that has a site speed. So site
Gotcha.
speed is just another ranking factor. It's not the end all be all. Um, it's something good. It is good to have for overall user experience.
Yep. Gotcha. That's helpful. And I think that's something that I hear a lot of SEO guys talking about, but not necessarily attorneys. So it's something to consider. And
Right.
also, like, not to, it's kind of a separate consideration, but if your website is not mobile friendly at this
Mhm.
point, probably a time to do that, right?
Yeah, we got till March. Google is now. They actually said we got till March.
Yep. Okay, so you're on the clock, everybody.
Yeah, you're on the
Got
clock.
2.5
Final
months.
four, man. Final four.
All right. So last question I have for you is like, if I'm an attorney who's never done this before, never worked with an SEO person, maybe not spend a ton of money on marketing, period. How would I start, and what would my expectations be? Like if I had a meeting with you, what would that look like? In terms of initial cost expenditure, what should I be thinking about as far as that's concerned? What are your thoughts on that?
So, generally any SEO campaign is, anything less, there's some people that say, at least $2,500 or more you
Yeah.
should be looking at. But I'm looking like for like a single man practice, a minimum of like $1,300, just to start. And then
That's a
the
monthly spend,
expectation,
right?
that's a monthly spend. That's a
Yep.
monthly spend. But you think, what is a client worth? What is one client worth to you? And
Right.
and then you want to look to see after 60 days what type of results you're getting. If you're not getting any real keyword traffic, any traffic acceleration, any ranking traffic, any rankings, or any real backlinks that are being built to the site, then you want to kind of reevaluate what's going on with your SEO.
Right. And I've heard the same thing. Average is going to be like 2,000, 2,500 a month, but I think 1,300 is fair for like a small firm. And then you're right, like you don't do this and then just continue to pay if it's not working, right? You want to you want to do what you've done, which is like you stay in touch with people, you advise them on different directions to take, and you make it work. So I think
now I do charge a lot less than other people. So
you do. Yeah, I would say that. And then like I think it's true that like you want to work with somebody who's invested in your success as well. And not like there are large SEO companies out there that you're a number to them. But I think for somebody who's looking for like a local provider who can really work with them on building out a marketing campaign online, it'd be potentially a really good fit for them. So before we wind up, let me ask you, and for everybody on the call and who's going to be listening later to the archive, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, they were interested in at least having a conversation, what's the best way to do that?
Okay. They can just type in Indiana SEO and we show up number one.
Oh, that's pretty good. Now that's basically a commercial unto itself.
As Retail SEO, or they can go to retailseo.com. Retailseo.com, and I believe there's a link on the board.
And that's RATEL SEO.com. I'm going to type that into the
retail. It just there's another name for the honey badger. So
I know you were telling me that. That was wild. Yeah. Is that like French for honey badger or something like? Where is that?
It's just another name.
Just an alternate name.
Alternate name for it. Yeah.
Alternate name, still ferocious.
Still ferocious. I like that, man. Alternate name, still ferocious.
So I've got your website in the chat here. Thanks for coming in today, everybody. This is the first time we've done an interview session like this, and I felt like it went well. I was very happy to have you on. This is a great conversation.
Right on, man.
All right, everybody. So talk to Darren. Check out his website, retailseo.com. And I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Darren. Take it easy.
Thanks,